Major League Baseball spring training is underway as of this weekend. Manny Machado is a $350 or $350 million man. $350 would be a very nice bargain.
I would say that's more like you and me.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I would love that.
You post labrum surgery. That's your $350 man. But Manny Machado is officially a $500 million player for the San Diego Padres. When it's all said and done, he's made $150 million. He'll make 350 more. The Padres also hung 18 on the Diamondbacks this weekend. Yeah. I'm starting a new thing, pretty much titled Spring Training Overreactions. And then we've got top 10 first basemen in the game as well. We continue the top 10s. This is like the first loaded show in what feels like forever, but it's really good to talk about baseball that we just watched.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun because, it's loose, but at the same time, you're still seeing guys compete. It's a nice appetizer to the World Baseball Classic, which is going to disrupt what we're used to. That's going to be high leverage baseball, intense baseball, kind of before we get the Major League season. But what I've noticed a little bit of is some of the guys that are getting ready to head to the WBC are ramping it up a little bit more than they do this early in the spring, maybe in other years, because they got to ramp up for the ramp up, which is like, I got to be ready to go first or third on a single because I'm going to have to do that like full speed in a couple weeks in the World Baseball Classic. Like no one's dogging it in the World Baseball Classic. It's not happening. If you don't plan on going 100%, you're not playing. That's why we've seen a lot of guys bow out. So it's been cool to kind of see some of these teams put their best lineup forward right away because there's so many teams that'll be quote unquote broken up with the World Baseball Classic, which I know managers hate, but we don't really care.
I don't care at all. And I don't think the players really care that much. Although you are seeing guys, if they tweak something, right? Like Pivetta, I think tweaked a hammy. He's done. Kershaw tweaked something. Yeah. He's done. Alejandro Kirk is still waiting for a kid to pop out. So he's done. Like very unique situations here. I figured we could spend like the first 45 minutes of the show talking about why the pitch clock sucks. And it's okay to it's okay to like make a foregone conclusion statement on the pitch clock after 2 days of spring training baseball. You in?
Yeah. So I'll highlight one anecdotal example of that was, and who I love and I admire is in the way that he does his job. But I mean, dude, passing, it was brutal. The one tweet where he had the tweet of the video of that 3-2 pitch. That didn't happen, right? With the bases loaded, the run walks in, whatever the call was, or the strikeout. It was a strikeout. And
I think it was,
I don't care because no one pays attention. Even if he had a walk-off grand slam, no one would give a shit except for Cal Conley's family, and that's about it. Yeah. But we pretend that this was a big deal, and Passan goes, "Oh, this is the new reality." And
no, it's not.
Like, come on, what kind of doomsday shit is this? This is not the new reality. This is February 25th. Game 1 of spring training, which these growing pains are going to happen. You're a minor league broadcaster, Jack. How many games that you broadcasted and or watched? I watched a shit ton, and you broadcasted even more probably. How many games ended with a pitch clock violation?
0.
0 up, right?
I hardly saw any in the 9th inning. Like there's more leeway in the regular season that I think anybody's expecting right now. The only reason you're seeing as many calls as you are, is because you're watching these games via Twitter and everybody's clipping them and putting them out on Twitter. Guess how many are happening over the course of a 9-inning game? We're seeing over 200 pitches, probably closer to 300 pitches being thrown in total in these games. 1.7. That's how many times we're seeing a pitch clock violation so far in these spring training games.
Even better. So first week of minor league baseball, according to Baseball America, there was 1.54 violations per game, pitch clock violations. By the second week, it dropped to 1.19. By the third week, it was 0.93. By the fourth week, it was 0.68. And it continued to dwindle as the year went on. That means 32% of games roughly had 0 violations. Like I know that's rough back of the envelope.
And the majority had
just
1.
Roughly averages out.
Right.
What? Sorry?
And the majority had 1.
1. Which was in the third inning with 1 out in a 1-1 count, which sucks at that time. And that's one growing pain. But how about every single game being 2 hours and change? Longest one being 3 hours. And these are with a lot of subs, with a lot of guys that are like, reliever here, reliever there, substituting here and there. Like nobody's really uber aggressive as they're all kind of feeling it out. It seems like every count kind of goes deep. Like these are going quick. I'm glad we started with that real quick because the faux outrage is ridiculous. It's not a new reality. And I hated seeing Passan, because he's always so calculated and thoughtful. And I'm like, oh, you tipped your hand on this one. Like,
But
obviously,
he's also a
you're not a huge
doomsdayer.
fan.
Let's be honest. He's like
Yeah, he is
totally
a doomsayer.
sensationalist.
Yeah, and it got a lot of retweets. It got a ton of engagement. So
He knows how to do that.
I get it, and he's really good. But like that was the one thing that I wanted to make clear. I'm like, this is not the new reality. This is February 25th, and just like you shouldn't take every single result, very seriously. I think you should be excited about a big time exit velocity, a young guy putting up a 118 that he had never put up before, like some freakish thing like that, or a pitcher that is, running it up a little bit higher velocity wise than we're used to, or, maybe some starting pitcher is mixing in a cutter that we didn't see previously. Look for those things. But if you're chasing results in spring training, you're just wasting your time. Like that. No, none of these players don't care about results right now. So why should you?
Exactly. And I tell you, these players by the end of spring training are going to love the pitch clock. I heard negative thoughts about the pitch clock from hitters, not pitchers, in the first month of the regular season in minor league ball last year. After that, not a word. There was pretty much a general consensus that this was a good thing. My last point on the pitch clock. Arizona and San Diego, and this will go into the Padre conversation. San Diego won 18-6. There were a combined, if my count is correct, 16 pitchers used, 11 walks issued, 25 total hits, and 24 total runs. That game, an 18-6 game with 16 pitchers used, took 3 hours and 3 minutes. This is the best thing to happen to baseball.
Yeah. And I think people are going to really like it. And last thing I'll say is Codify. They tweeted out, a clip of like just a slow at bat last year between like Christian Vasquez and some reliever. And it's like, man, you actually it reminds you how monotonous it can be. So the guy steps out, adjusts everything. And it was just like, oh my gosh, here we go. Pitch to pitch to pitch. Like I know that more people that watch games very passively may watch more games now. I really do believe that. So I'm looking forward to the results, I think, being very positive.
So Gary Cohen put it best, I think. He said, and I don't think I'm getting this directly, but it's this same line. It doesn't take away baseball time. It lessens non-baseball time in the course of a baseball game. You're getting the same amount of baseball, everybody. You're getting the same number of pitches. You're getting the same number of balls in play, hopefully some more. And you're just getting out of there quicker because you don't have to deal with like the step offs, and you don't have to deal with like getting a new baseball every time.
And if you go to baseball games to watch them swap out baseballs or lick their finger for the 50th time and wipe it on their pants or adjust their batting, if that's why you go to games,
take up golf.
I'll tip my cap to you. I mean, that's really awesome. I promise you, you're one of very few. So that said, I think a lot of people are going to be going to San Diego Padres games now for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, you texted me, can we talk Padres? So go ahead and talk Padres and I'll fill in whatever.
Yeah, real quick before we get into the top 10s, I just find their whole situation fascinating because I considered the Machado extension, honestly, unlikely. That's with no sources, nothing like that. Of course, that was just based on whatever basic reasoning I can kind of come to, because you look at it from this lens. And I think we talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but you're already paying Tatis. You just paid Xander big money, and you just traded a haul for Juan Soto. And a haul puts it lightly. I mean, we're seeing James Wood ranked as a top 5 prospect in baseball by some, top 20 by everybody. And then you're going to talk about Gore, Abrams, Hassel, and Susana. These are all really, really good players. It's an all-time package. You figure if you trade that for a Juan Soto, you're going to extend him. You're not trading that for 2.25 years of Juan Soto. My question to you is, like, are they actually? So are they now going to pay Juan Soto as well? Or is he going to potentially hit free agency? If he does, I think it's a gross misuse of assets. And I know that's crazy to say because I'll never fault a team for signing, or excuse me, for trading for a generational hitter like Juan Soto. But in terms of just using your assets properly, factions of that large package could have got you multiple stars. So if this is what you cashed in the entire farm in for, was for 2.25 years of Juan Soto, they better win it in the next 2, or else it looks pretty ridiculous.
So my thought on that is I think Machado and I think Yu Darvish were slightly more inclined to sign their long-term deals with the Padres because they saw the aggressiveness needed to go after Juan Soto. And they know that ownership and they know that AJ Preller will put the Padres in a position year after year where if they're competing for a World Series championship, they will push the chips in to go try and win that World Series. And that's really enticing. And I heard the number floated at 400 million. I think Nightingale floated that number for Machado. That's what he wanted. I think that's kind of a front. Like that's probably a smokescreen number.
That's probably the asking price. They settled on 350.
Yeah, they settled on 350 here. I think Machado is willing to budge from 400 and go to 350, knowing that the Padres do everything in their power to go try and win championships when they have the opportunity to do so. Now, after locking up Machado and Darvish and Musgrove and Tatis, I think that the ship has sailed on extending Soto. I don't think that Juan Soto signs an extension with San Diego. Do you?
I just find it so baffling that you could trade that kind of haul for a couple years of a player.
But they did it for 3 Octobers of Juan Soto.
Well, you burned the first one and he wasn't even that great. I understand. So that's hindsight though. Like 3 Octobers of Juan Soto are worth what they gave up. Like, man.
I mean,
so
like you're the prospect guy, but you're never going to have a prospect block what you're trying to do right now.
That's fine. And you can bank on, I'm not banking on these guys panning out. What I'm banking on is the value of the assets, use of assets, right? We're talking about if you package Gore and Abrams in one deal, you're getting a very impactful.
You get a top 20 player in the game. You just don't get a top 3 player in the game.
So that's my thing. So then you also, at this point, package a James Wood, who they knew was heading into top 15 prospect territory.
Package Wood, Hassel, and Susana, you get another top 20 player.
Correct. My point is, if they, maybe they were more optimistic at that point that they could extend a Juan Soto, and now they realize they could. Then that's why it's hard to go too deep into this. But my thing is just, I think this was an AJ Preller moment, that just a classic AJ Preller moment, right?
Yeah.
Where he swings for the fences and he hits home runs sometimes. This is one where, I think he went all in, said, I'm going to get Juan freaking Soto. Why wouldn't I? Which in a nutshell is great. But I think we're going to look back at this one and be like, whoo, that was a lot to give up for a small window. And, we'll look back and say, how did that go? If they win in the next couple of years, then it's great. I don't fault them for taking a shot, but I'm not giving up the whole farm for a guy that not only am I not extending, a guy that is more of a DH liability in the outfield type. So I know he's one of the best hitters in the game. I thought it was very fascinating. Anyway, it takes away from the Machado extension. I love that. If it means you're not keeping Soto, at the end of the day, you got to keep one of them. And if you let Machado walk and then you end up losing Soto down the line, then you're really going to kick yourself. So I don't fault them for taking the bird in hand here. And signing a guy that obviously wanted to stay there, right? Yep. I mean, I imagine that's why he let them know that he was going to exercise the opt-out a year before he did. It gives him a window like, hey, I want to stay here. I have to exercise my opt-out because I'm leaving hundreds of millions on the table. That said, I'm going to give you a year to make me a better offer than I think I can get, or at least a competitive offer, and I'll stay. So it worked. But I think that might have been why at that point the Padres said, hey, we don't want to risk losing both. We might as well take the bird in hand here. We know Machado will sign for X. Can't fault them for that. But that's why I'm always a little wary of putting all your eggs in one basket on a trade like that.
So my only counterpoint there is think about how badly a Padres fan base and how badly Padres ownership would want a golden era of Padres baseball. And they unlocked 2.5 years of a golden era of Padres baseball.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's fair. And we'll see. again, if they do some special stuff, I mean, I
If
thought
if
last
they
year was,
win it, it's worth it. If they
yeah.
win the World Series this year
Oh
and
yeah,
don't next year and
100%.
Soto walks, worth it.
100%. So I won't say anything bad yet. But I will say like it's not, I don't think even if they lose in the, in whatever round in the NLCS the next 2 years, I don't think you could say it was a bad move. I think you could just look back and say, I wonder what else they could have done with those assets. But at the end of the day, they're giving themselves a great shot and they're going for it, and you can't fault them for that.
Here's another one for you. If they don't win, if they go to the NLCS each of the next 2 years, Juan Soto is top 3 in NL MVP voting each of the next 2 years. Was it worth it?
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that's the value of 2 MVP seasons. Sure. Yeah, I think so. So again, I'm with your counterpoint. I hear it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of scenarios where what I'm saying is null. But it's just something that kind of started to creep into my mind. I'm like, this could be interesting to look back on, because when it happened, we're like, oh, no brainer, and they have to extend him after that package, right? So now it's like they better get the Juan Soto that they traded for the next 2 years, because if they don't extend him, they better get some value over the next couple seasons, and I think they will. He also looked fantastic, by the way, today.
Yeah, I mean, he pumped out a bomb, and like we're expecting a guy to roll out of bed and have a 4.10 OBP, right?
Yeah, and 2 seasons of that, I guess, is worth whatever prospect capital you want. I mean, that's fair.
Now, transitioning to my first of 3 spring training overreactions for this episode, Mackenzie Gore looked fucking awesome on Saturday. 95-96 with the heater. The secondaries were there. Threw 18 pitches, 13 for strikes, if I'm remembering correctly. If Mackenzie Gore is healthy, you saw what he could do in the front half of last year, where he was pretty much atop the Rookie of the Year leaderboards until he went down and Harris and Strider took it from him. Mackenzie Gore, like, I saw the frontline guy that I think a lot of people saw in 2019, and I think a lot of people saw it as well at the beginning of his major league career a year ago.
100%. And I think it's really about the health at this point, because I'm pretty sold on him being at least close enough to that version that we always thought he could be, right? I think he's back to at least high profile pitching prospects, Mackenzie Gore. I don't know if he's back to generational left-handed talent, which I don't think was fair to him.
Kershaw 2.0. Yeah.
He was more advanced than most players we've seen his age, and we got excited. But I think this is a guy that's a really good middle of the rotation lefty, which is extremely valuable, and then with room for a little bit more. Yeah, the fastball averaged 95.5 miles per hour, and 8 of the 9 he threw were strikes.
That's great, man.
He was getting ahead of everybody. He mixed in the curve, mixed in the slider, even threw a change. Like, yeah, I mean, everything looked really good there. So I'm excited to see more of him. And again, I mean, it's a really valuable piece for the Nationals here. And talk about like a guy that this is where you're looking at spring training, right? I mean, that's what you want to see.
Yes.
Not even just the results. Oh, Gore is sitting mid 90s to
he
upper
looks
90s
good
and throwing strikes. That's what you want to look at spring training for. Like, oh, he looks good. Don't chase the results. But yeah, I like that. What else you got?
Reed Detmers looked really, really good.
Talk about another X factor, dude. If that guy's closer to a 2 for them, which it's possible, if he's closer to a 2, that team, we might start buying in again, man.
I'm bought into Detmers, man. I think Reed Detmers can absolutely be the 3 for them. And I think you look at Ohtani, Tyler Anderson, and Reed Detmers as a front 3.
That's legit.
Feel great about that.
That's legit. And the bullpen's good.
Yeah, they're fine. And the lineup depends what Joe Adele is. I know Joe Adele hit a bomb. No. Yeah.
We'll save it for the preview. What's your third?
That's fine. My third, I prefer watching pitchers this early in spring training as opposed to hitters, because I think pitchers are so far ahead. And we've talked about this. Like, pitchers can throw bullpens all offseason. Like, they can go through a ramp-up process. Pitchers are seeing live major league arms for the first time all offseason. So yeah, pitching is like ahead. Pitching is much farther ahead than I think hitters are. So I like watching the pitchers. But the one hitter that's jumped out to me is the guy that's going to go 50-50 in 2025. Zach Veen, through his first 2 games, is 3 for 5 with 2 doubles and a nuke, man. Are you bought in or are you bought in?
Here we go. I can't believe you're saving Veen. I didn't think that was going to be one of your takeaways.
Come on, man. Veen,
I'm excited.
Another arm real quick. Taj Bradley looked great as well.
Yeah.
The fastball was jumping, but that's beside the point. Give me your Zach Veen take.
I'm excited. I want to see what Veen can do. It was a rough double-A stint. I think he's extremely talented. So this is good. It's good experience for him. Just see if he can handle the velo, see how he handles some tougher competition. But I will say the Taj Bradley storyline, and I want to do an episode at some point. I know we're pretty scheduled out, and a lot of content over the next however many months, especially over the weeks leading into the season. We're action packed at the Just Baseball show.
After opening day, we can talk about whatever we want.
Yes. Yeah. I want to talk about like prospect storylines, and player storylines, because it'll probably be a good call-up episode, because there are players here that I will kind of take back a little bit of what I said and say, watch their results a little bit more closely. Maybe not in the first week, but as we get to week 2, 3 and onward, like watch Taj Bradley's results a little bit more, because how he looks can very much expedite how long he needs to stay in AAA. Same with Yuri Perez. Like, this is an opportunity for him to show, hey, I'm pretty damn near ready to go. Like, if you start me in triple, I'm ready to go. You can see that with a few other guys that I think are going to get the opportunity to pitch, aren't expected to break in on opening day, but can really shorten the length of time that they're expected to stick in triple by their performance out here. And we'll talk about that on the call, because I think there's a slew of pitchers and hitters that kind of fit in that bucket.
100%. And this is like the best time for the prospect people, because I grew up going out to Arizona and seeing the Cubs and White Sox play spring training. And I'm sure you went to the ballpark with your dad growing up during spring training, and it was a great time. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning of my spring training presence, you would see the 78s and the 87s and the 92s and say, who the hell are those guys? But now that means something, because typically they're MLB ready or close to MLB ready prospects.
Yep. Yeah, which is so fun. That's why I've really enjoyed watching the end of these games. I mean, when the lineup turns over, some teams it's a disaster, and guys that I don't care about. But a lot of teams, it's like, oh, here's Jackson Merrill, here's Jackson Holiday. Here are some really exciting prospects, one after another. So, and that stuff we'll talk about on the call up too. And again, I'm not chasing results there. I'm just chasing poise and how they're commanding their at bats, how comfortable they look, and then of course a little bit of the flash and flare, like a Casey Schmidt hitting the ball to the freaking moon. Yes. Like, oh, that swing looks a little better. That's
Ronnie Mauricio going 450 feet.
He looks a little different. That's something I'm buying into. So yeah, I'm excited to break more of that down. But we got some first basemen